Well, as I just said, this hour will not be what Donald Trump wants it to be. It will not be a discussion of Donald Trump's pathological lie that liberals are to blame for the murder of Charlie Cook. Donald Trump knows that's a lie, and he is pushing that lie in the hope that programs like this will be filled with anguished complaint about this Trump mass libel of.
Dear viewer, please remember to like and subscribe so that this video reaches more people.
Half of America. Donald Trump is the only president of the United States who has ever blamed a murder on millions of voters who did not vote for him. Donald Trump knows that the 22-year-old Utah man accused of the murder grew up in a family of registered Republican parents who Donald Trump has now praised repeatedly. Today, Donald Trump said that the accused murderer's parents did everything right. Parents who can think, of course, that they've done everything right are not parents I've met. Parents whose kids end up facing murder charges surely can wonder from time to time what they might have gotten wrong. And so Donald Trump insults the intelligence of the entire country, including his own supporters, when he launches this mass libel of half the country. The 20-year-old man in Pennsylvania who shot at Donald Trump was a registered Republican. And the 22-year-old Utah man accused of murdering Charlie Cook has never voted. The single most murderous American political assassin was a registered Republican. And he is the only American political assassin who murdered more than one person. Timothy McVeigh was a veteran of the United States Army who, at 26 years old, in an instant, murdered 168 people in the federal building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, in 1995. Registered Republican Timothy McVeigh attacked the federal building specifically to assassinate federal workers for his twisted right-wing political reasons. Registered Republican Timothy McVeigh came to hate the government in whose army he served. Timothy McVeigh murdered 19 children in the daycare center of that federal building in an instant by blowing up that building with a truck bomb. Registered Republican Timothy McVeigh's assassination target that day was all the federal workers in that building, and he didn't care who else would have to die in the process. That's how far Timothy McVeigh's insane right-wing ideology drove him. And Donald Trump had nothing to say about that. In 1995, Donald Trump could pick up the phone and get himself quoted in the New York tabloid newspapers whenever he wanted to. He could get himself booked on TV chat shows and say whatever he wanted to say. He could take out full-page ads in the New York Times and condemn people, as he had already done at that time, demanding the death penalty. In one case, for people who he wrongly believed were guilty of raping a woman in Central Park. There was no full-page ad by Donald Trump about Timothy McVeigh. Donald Trump didn't blame the Republican Party for what Timothy McVeigh did. No one blamed Republicans for what Timothy McVeigh did. There was no internet to blame yet, no social media to blame for poisoning Timothy McVeigh's mind. And it never crossed any politician's mind to blame millions of people who never met Timothy McVeigh. That is Donald Trump's uniquely perverse contribution to the aftermath of a public murder. What Donald Trump wants is agreement from his supporters and outrage from the millions of people he is libelously accusing of inciting murder. Because that means that we will not be covering the very bad news that continues to mount for Donald Trump, including headlines like this one in today's Wall Street Journal, right there. Putin, Netanyahu march on with Trump on the sidelines. That is a very, very important headline for the world and a very bad headline for Donald Trump. Vladimir Putin and Benjamin Netanyahu proving every day how irrelevant Donald Trump is to their calculations about what they will do next. Remember Donald Trump's pointless trip to Alaska to welcome Vladimir Putin into the United States? Donald Trump said he would give Vladimir Putin 2 weeks after that to reach a peace agreement with Ukraine. And Vladimir Putin has continued his savage attacks on Ukraine and humiliated Donald Trump even more than he was before by sending Russian drones into NATO territory in Poland. And Donald Trump says nothing. Donald Trump just says libelous things about other people being to blame for the murder of Charlie Kirk. Donald Trump just wants to get half the country outraged at the other half of this country. And Donald Trump doesn't want anyone in this country to be outraged at Vladimir Putin. The other bad news for Donald Trump includes a federal court tonight finding his attempt to fire a member of the Federal Reserve Board to be completely and obviously illegal. And so Lisa Cook will show up for tomorrow's meeting at the Federal Reserve because she's still a member and she knows that. And Donald Trump really doesn't want you to know what's in the emails in the Epstein files. Our first guest tonight has been studying the emails in the Epstein files. Jason Leopold at Bloomberg reports the emails, part of a cache of more than 18,000 obtained by Bloomberg News, show that Maxwell and Epstein were closer in many respects than either publicly admitted. Maxwell opened at least one foreign bank account using one of his addresses, was a named director on one of Epstein's main revenue-generating companies, and traded stock in a company they were both invested in, details that haven't been previously reported. The details in these emails show Ghislaine Maxwell lied to federal agents, which is the criminal equivalent of perjury, when Donald Trump's former criminal defense lawyer, now Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, went to Florida last month to have a friendly chat with Ghislaine Maxwell. On the recorded portion of their conversation, and we don't know how much was said when the recording wasn't on, but on the recorded portion of the conversation, which has been made public, Todd Blanche warned Ghislaine Maxwell that it would be a crime for her to lie to them in that conversation, but she did lie to them anyway. And Donald Trump doesn't want you to know that. Donald Trump did her the immediate favor of moving her to an easy, relaxed camp from the federal prison that she was in. And so Donald Trump doesn't want you to see the evidence of her perjury in these emails tonight that Bloomberg has obtained. Donald Trump wants to think about the possibility of releasing her from prison someday, and so he doesn't want any of this information out there. And Donald Trump is not going to prosecute her for the perjury that she committed in her conversation with Todd Blanche. And it is Donald Trump who decides who gets prosecuted by the Trump Justice Department. Bloomberg reports that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, quote, discussed undergoing a shared fertility procedure long after Maxwell claims she largely disassociated from him. They corresponded about discrediting women who raised allegations against them, including in one exchange where Maxwell said she planned to circulate compromising information on one of Epstein's sexual abuse victims. Maxwell has maintained she was kept in the dark about details of Epstein's initial sexual abuse case in the mid-2000s, yet the emails demonstrate her deep knowledge of the legal jeopardy he faced and show how she helped him strategize over even the most consequential details. Ghislaine Maxwell advised Jeffrey Epstein on the plea deal that he made in 2008 that instead of imprisoning Jeffrey Epstein as a sex trafficker and raper of children, allowed Jeffrey Epstein to continue to roam free and rape more children.
First, let's be clear. Trump is playing his classic game again. A murder is committed. The country is in shock, families are devastated, and what's the first thing that comes to Trump's mind? The liberals are to blame. Seriously, he probably wakes up in the morning, looks in the mirror, and says, "The Democrats are responsible for my bad hair day." He's so used to breathing lies like oxygen. But the real problem is this. This time, it's not just a routine political maneuver. He's directly labeling half the country, millions of people, as murderers. No one in history, absolutely no one, has ever attempted to collectively label their political opponents with such a crime. Remember Timothy McVeigh? He killed 168 people, 19 of them children. He carried out the deadliest American terrorist attack on record. What was McVeigh? A registered Republican. But what happened then? No one stood up and said, Republicans are child murderers, because people have a little bit of common sense, but Trump's concern is not common sense. His concern is to pit this country against itself. And the irony is that while Trump is always blaming others, his own circle is sinking into a swamp like mud. Take the emails published by Bloomberg today, for example, the correspondence between Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. Blatant sex trafficking, child abuse, fake investments, perjury, i.e., false statements. And Trump's former defense attorney goes and has friendly chats with these people. Then Trump waves his magic wand. Poof. He takes Ghislaine out of a tough prison and sends her to a more comfortable camp. Isn't that just lovely? If you or I couldn't pay our taxes, our lives would be ruined. But if you're a sex trafficking accomplice, you get all-you-can-eat privileges under Trump. You know that guy who shouts law and order? Well, that's exactly what he understands by law. And there's more. The Marin Comey case. She's a highly respected federal prosecutor who had delved deep into the Epstein files and was just about to be assigned to a critical corruption case. The next day, fired. Why? Because her father is James Comey. Trump has a vendetta and he couldn't care less about the law. Around the same time, Epstein's birthday book containing letters signed by Trump was leaked to the media. What a coincidence, right? Let's face it, the Trump administration has now surpassed even mafia movies. This is Godfather 4, Mar-a-Lago edition. There are dozens of victims begging the House of Representatives, seeking justice for years. We believed in America when we were little girls, then the state abandoned us halfway, they say. This is Trump's true legacy, a generation whose faith in the state has been shattered, and we're still debating the man's liberals are to blame fairy tale.